Chapter 20. Becky was finding being tied to the desk, computer and phone a drag. Strange really, because in the normal course of events she spent a great deal of time busy doing just that. The difference was now that she was completely unable to follow up any of the leads herself. DC Wainwright, you are under no circumstances to leave the ops room until further notice. Do you understand that? Wen left no doubt by the tone of her voice. Yes, Mum, but... No buts, ifs or ands. The only reason you've not been put on leave is that I think you're safer here than at home. Yes, Mum. Becky looked defeated. Becky, you've had a real and dangerous threat made against your life, and until we catch this killer, I want no chances taken. Yes, Mum. Right. What are you doing about living accommodation? I take it this arrangement with your ex is only temporary. Yes, Mum. I'm going to look into renting a flat. I don't want to go back to the house, and hopefully it will sell sooner or later. Fine, but please take someone with you when you view these places. In fact, when you go anywhere for the foreseeable. Now, as Becky sifted through the information the public had phoned in and tried to pick out anything useful, she wondered how long it would be before she could get her life back. What if they didn't catch this man? Would she have to move to a different job? Would that make any difference? Would whoever it was still come after her? And why her? She felt tears prickling the backs of her eyes. Not one for self-pity. Even she had to admit this was getting to her. Excuse me, Becky, have you finished with that list? Jake peeped over his monitors. What? Oh, yes, sorry, Jake. She crossed the room and handed the documents to her colleague. How do you do this all the time, Jake? Don't you get bored always being in the office? Nope, but this is my thing. You go and catch them, I just point you in the right direction because of my genius. He tapped the splint on his leg. Just as well, really. How is it? Becky nodded towards Jake's leg. Touch and go at the moment. He didn't make eye contact, just kept looking at his screen. In what way? If I keep it or not. Now he turned to look at her. Becky tried not to show the shock she felt at that statement, but realised by the expression on Jake's face that she'd failed miserably. That bad? Yep. Not healing the way it should, apparently. Jake was quiet for a moment. But what can you do? At least I've got one good working leg. Gone was the face of the carefree young man, replaced with real fear. Well, we're going to be office buddies for a while, so at least I can go on the coffee and cake runs for you. Jake smiled. Not the one most people saw, the smirk of the cocky know-it-all, but the smile of a scared young man who might soon face a terrible life-changing decision. This lasted only a moment as he met Becky's gaze again. Then it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. His game face was back in place. The tension was broken as Becky's phone rang. Hello, DC Wainwright here. Hi, Becky, Desk Sergeant here. We have someone down at reception who wants to talk to you. She says she knows who the murdered girl is. Becky took the stairs two at a time, even though she wasn't trying to get her hopes up. Probably another time waster. She had learned in her short career that most people did want to help, but sometimes too much, and got carried away with their enthusiasm to do the right thing. As Becky reached the bottom of the stairs, the glass door showed a young, dark-haired woman of about 20 on the edge of her seat in the waiting area. She looked ill at ease, and her left leg jiggled with nervous energy. Hi, I'm DC Wainwright, Becky said as she swept through the door, extending her hand towards the possible informant. The woman got up, edged forward, and took Becky's hand very briefly, as if by touching her she might be tainted in some way. "And you are?" Becky prompted. Andrea Belensky." "Okay, Andrea. If you'd like to come this way, we can have a quiet chat." The woman looked uncertain and glanced at the front doors as if reconsidering her options. "It's okay, Andrea," said Becky. "You're safe here. No one will hurt you. And anything you tell me will be treated with the strictest confidence." Andrea relaxed slightly and nodded her assent. Becky led the way to a private room with comfy seats, a coffee table, and bright prints on the wall. They tried hard to make this place look non-threatening and homely, and it got halfway there, only to be defeated by the mesh on the outside of the windows. "Please sit down," she said. "Now, is it all right if I take some notes? It's so I don't forget anything that might be important." Andrea nodded again. "Is your English all right, or would you like me to get an interpreter?" "No, thank you. My English is good, I think." "Well, it sounds good to me. First of all, can I take some personal details?" Once again the woman looked startled. "Only if you want to." Within 10 minutes, Becky had Andrea's date of birth and address, that she was in the country as an asylum seeker, and was awaiting a status review by immigration. "You're from Poland?" "No, Russia. I defect. They will kill me if I go back." "Why? What did you do?" "I can't. This was a mistake." She stood up, beads of sweat on her brow. Becky jumped up. "I'm sorry, that's got nothing to do with me, or the help you can give us. Please sit down. Only questions about the dead girl now, I promise." The woman hesitated for a moment and then sat down again. "Who do you think she is, Andrea?" asked Becky. "I think she might be my sister-in-law, and if it is the dead man, I think that's my brother." 2 hours later, Andrea was taken by a uniformed officer and driven to her squat where she had been living, to pick up her few belongings and then onto a shelter, which for the moment would be her new home. During that time, Becky and Wen had gently extracted as much information from Andrea as they could, without scaring her into thinking that they were going to interrogate her. They took her to do a formal identification of the female murder victim and obtained a DNA sample to compare her genes with the dead man's. Andrea really wanted to see his body, and it took some persuasion to convince her that that was not a good idea. That evening at the team briefing, they all had information to share. At last they were getting somewhere. "The female victim is probably Katerina Belinsky, and the male we think is her husband, Luka Belinsky," said Wen. "Both were here as asylum seekers. They came to the UK because Luka was a scientist in Russia, and he came to this country with his wife and sister to work. They were living in a tiny bedsit until a few weeks ago, when Katerina went out shopping and didn't come back. Her husband went looking for her." "And he didn't come back either," said Cassie. At which point, Andrea, afraid that the FSB had got her brother and sister-in-law, went into hiding. A hand went up at the back of the room. "Yes, Tom?" "Sorry, Ma'am, but who or what are the FSB?" "Can anyone enlighten Tom?" Wen asked the room. "Russian secret police," Jake called out. Wen smiled. "Give that man a jelly bean. Yes, they're the Russian equivalent of MI5, I believe. But I don't think it was them. I reckon it was someone who knew the family and their situation, and used that knowledge to get 2 victims instead of 1. Only one person would miss them, and she would be too scared to notify anyone in authority." "Perfect choice," said Becky, grimacing. "Even the homeless have people who notice if they weren't there anymore." Andrea only ventured out yesterday for paracetamol for a raging toothache, and she saw one of our posters, Becky added. Poor woman, said Richard. What's going to happen to her? Hopefully she'll be able to stay in the UK, but that isn't up to us. We still can't be sure until we get the DNA results for the sister-brother match. As Andrea wasn't 100% sure the female victim was her sister-in-law, it's not easy to ID somebody when you can't see the whole of their face, the DI told her team. Wen's thoughts went back momentarily to the body presented to Andrea to ID. Its eye sockets now covered with a piece of material to hide the horrific details from the person who had to carry out this formality. Is it true, wondered Wen, that the eyes are the souls of a person? And did her killer want to take that away from her? But we think it's them. This came from Richard. Yes, all we have to do now is find the link. Who knew them? And who knew their situation? Andrea's coming in again tomorrow, and Becky will interview her with me. Shouldn't I be doing that, Mom? Cassie asked, looking rather annoyed. No, Cassie. Andrea trusts Becky, and I want to build on that. Now, what else have we got? Richard? I need an ADP1 to get hold of some medical records, Ma'am, but I've got the names of some tutors whose classes Martin Grimes took as an inpatient. I'm going to speak to them tomorrow, and hopefully by the end of the day we'll have permission to see which other patients he interacted with while he was in there. Good. And Cassie and I went to see David Lowry. I want to delve into his past a bit more. I don't trust that guy. I was going to look at a flat with him, Becky said, flushing slightly. Well, don't, said Wen. Not while he's a person of interest, anyhow. Becky nodded. Wen surveyed her team. Now then, we're getting close. Go home, get some rest, and be back here at 8 in the morning for a short briefing and a task assignment. See you all tomorrow, and thank you. Becky went back to her desk. She still had a report to write up after the time with Andrea, and that would take her nicely to the end of her shift. How are you getting home, Becky? Asked Wen as she came out of her office. I've got my car, Mum. Right, I'll ask the desk sergeant to make sure someone sees you to the vehicle and waves you off, she finished with a smile. There's really no need. Oh, yes, there is, Becky. Be a good girl and do as you're told. Yes? Becky smiled back. Yes, Mum. It was reassuring to know that someone had her back, and in this case, it was the Warrington Police Force.